Welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are on to episode 13 of season 2, which was called Irresistible. Now, Brian, is this a fan favourite?
I think it is, yeah. I think it is. It's definitely a fan favourite because it did actually get a sequel much later in the series. It's one of the only kind of standalone episode villains, much in the way Toombs did. He got a sequel. He got it much quicker, obviously. But yeah, I think he got that because he is a fan favourite, because people do see this episode as being one of the best. And for me personally, as I say, it is my favourite of the season. From memory. I mean, like, we're going through these now. You know, it's been a long time since I've seen a lot of these. So but by the time we get to the end of the season, it might not be. It might not be my favourite of the season. But yeah.
Okay, let's jump into the start then, Brian.
Okay, so we start off at a funeral service. This woman's in tears. She's kind of giving a bit of a eulogy to her friend who's in a casket. It's an open casket funeral. And then we see Donny. And right off the bat, there's something just not right about this guy. He looks a bit creepy. And once everyone's left, he kind of goes over to the girl who's in the coffin and starts stroking her hair. And there's just something really, really off about this guy.
Yeah, this opening scene just put me off a little bit straight away because it looked like almost like a funeral I would expect to see in Beverly Hills 90210. It just looked weird. And then we had the people going up to the body, and it was really morbid, as if they were just wanting a look. Nobody was showing like any real emotion. They're just like, And then the next person would come up, and the person that has the most interaction with the body is the creepy guy, who is extremely creepy looking, naturally. Yeah. But it just was weird. I didn't know what the hell was happening, or what this episode was going to be about at this point.
Yeah. Okay. I think when it opens up, you might think, is somebody going to get raised from the dead? Is that girl in the coffin going to come back from the dead? Yeah. Is that the villain of the week thing? The parlor, the owner of the parlor basically tells him that they're keeping the body overnight because the family's changed their mind and they're going to have an outside service thing or something like that, an outside burial or whatever.
It's like, why would they change their mind like at this point? Because they've just had the service. It seems odd.
I don't know. I mean, I didn't quite get what the guy said, to be honest.
Yeah, he said that they've changed their mind. They're going to have a burial now.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's inconsequential.
It is inconsequential. It's basically just to tell us that the body's going to be stored overnight, which really fires Donny up. Oh, yeah. So that's this guy here, Donny Faster. He clearly gets fired up by that piece of information. And we cut to late at night, back in the funeral parlour, the owner guy comes back. He just kind of does some rummaging around, and then he hears a noise. And when he turns around, he sees someone moving in the shadows. And at first it looks like a man, and then it looks like some kind of demon, some weird looking demon type man. So the guy freaks out, runs, grabs the light, switches the light on, and it turns out to be Donny. And shortly after, this guy realises Donny has been cutting the hair off this corpse, among other things. So this guy proper freaks out, tells Donny to leave, and Donny does so. He leaves. And I can only assume that this guy does that rather than calling the police, because he doesn't want people investigating. Basically, he doesn't want shame being brought to his business. They've already had the service. He can close the casket. They'd never know. It's going to get buried. So rather that than bring shame on his business, I guess, is what he's thinking.
A couple of things about this scene. I don't know if it's the middle of the night or not. I think it is.
Yeah.
Which is just weird why the guy's eating an ice lolly.
It's late at night.
Yeah.
Is it an ice lolly he's eating?
Yeah. It just was like, that's weird. It's just weird. And then the weird changing of the guy is the man, Donny, slowly stands up from behind the casket. It's like a really freaky image, and then definitely that demonic image that appears for a second is really cool, really freaky looking. And again, this is directed by one of our favourites, David Nutter.
Yeah, he directed my favourite episode of season 1, which was Beyond the Sea.
Did he not direct my favourite episode as well, Brian?
He did, Ice, I think. Yeah, so this is definitely a favourite of ours. And this episode is it's the same number as well as Beyond the Sea, I think. So I can't remember which number episode of the season this is, but
13.
It's the same. 13, right. So, yeah, same as Beyond the Sea from season 1. So, coincidence? I think not. But I think they do that with TV shows anyway. They do tend to put what they consider to be a solid episode right in the middle, because that tends to be like your mid-season finale kind of thing. But yeah, so we have opening titles, and then after that we go to one of my favourite one episode characters. You know, we get these random characters who come in for one episode, and we've talked about it many times before. We get these the idiot detective of the week, or idiot local police sheriff of the week. With this one, we get Detective Mo Box, who I love this guy. I gotta say, he's pretty wacky, but he has quite a presence throughout this episode. He's not your typical kind of sheriff of the week in the sense that he's not just there for a bit of information at one point and then crop up at another. He's with Mulder and Scully throughout this episode. He kind of becomes Mulder's surrogate partner for much of the episode. So yeah, if you don't like this guy, then you're not going to enjoy much of this episode. But I do. I like him, and I think it's mainly down to this actor. He has this really dry delivery, and he just talks and talks and talks in this kind of monotone voice. And sometimes you can see it getting on Mulder's nerves. It's like, just get there faster, dude. Yeah. You get the feeling that this guy's like a proper small-town police officer, doesn't really deal with many cases of this sort, if any, you know. At one point, he does say that he's been up here in the Great White North too long, because he just doesn't get it. He doesn't get this kind of case. It probably deals primarily with purse snatchers and that kind of thing. But yeah, he's the one who's brought Mulder and Scully in because there has been some grave digging, shall we say. Some graves have been dug up, and the female body inside has been mutilated. So this guy instantly jumps to aliens. He says, "Doesn't that fit the profile?" And Mulder instantly checks the scene over, and he's like, he was apparently prepared for this, and he doesn't think it's aliens at all. Doesn't think it fits the profile. Scully's quite shaken. She looks at some. Is this where she looks at the photos? No, it's not. That's a little bit later on. But you can see Scully's unnerved anyway. She looks down at the body. She's quite unnerved. When Mulder says he was prepared for this, it turns out that the primary reason for him dragging Scully's ass there is because he wants to go to a Vikings versus Redskins game. So yeah, what do you think about this scene?
At the graveside.
Yeah.
I lost you for a bit there, Brian.
Oh right. Did you just let me keep rambling? Like just because
it froze.
Right. Okay.
But I get you. I like this scene because the guy just you get Mulder as the kind of rolling the eyes skeptic. He's just like, he's only dipping his toe in the alien world. I've been here a long time. I know it's not that. and you get that sort of imagery of the body lying all kind of twisted and distorted. The colour shades of purple and white, and it just looks horrible. And then Scully seems shocked, which just doesn't sit right with me at all.
Not at this point.
Not at all throughout the full episode.
Yeah. Through the full episode, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, right. Well, you're going to have a problem with this one then.
I do. Yeah.
Right, big time. Okay, well, right. I think that's the key then, I think, to this episode. Because this episode, to me, deals with the aftermath of Scully's abduction. We didn't really deal with it straight after one breath. When Scully came back, when she returned, we never really dealt with it. We went straight into Firewalker. We had a little bit of a protective thing going on with Mulder, but Scully kind of pushing past it. To me, that's what this episode is about, and this case brings it out of her. There's a lot of psychology going on in which Scully is dealing with everything that happened to her. So to me, I can get on board with this. Even to Scully, this comes out of the blue. You say you can't get on board with this because it's not Scully. You're right. It's not Scully. And Scully even says that at one point in the episode. I mean, we'll get there. But yeah, okay, let's just continue and we'll
I just
see.
At this point particularly, I don't see a medical examiner, somebody who's done autopsies on countless bodies, who has worked in the FBI and seen countless things, sees a body turned upside down in a grave with a haircut and seems shocked. That's just I just don't buy that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you in this scene. Like if I was watching this episode for the first time, I'd be with you on this scene. Because I think I'd be thinking, why would that freak Scully out? As if she's a medical examiner. But given what happens throughout the episode, I do kind of buy it. Okay, so we'll move on. So we cut to Donny Faster being interviewed at Futicelli's for a driver's job. And he sweet talks the lady there, talks about her perfume. Goes all Hannibal Lecter, basically, kind of knows what shade she's wearing and all that lot. Just seems really creepy to me, but she thinks she's scored, I think.
I don't get this at all. I mean, he could literally have a red light above his head just flashing saying killer, because he is the creepiest, most lack of emotional type person I've ever seen in my life. And this girl's like winking at him, just pure like, yeah, I'll put this down and I'll give you a little hint here and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, this guy just the only thing he's going to put in is a knife, so I'm just
Okay, swiftly moving on from that one. So Mo calls Mulder and Scully away from their game, much to Mulder's disappointment, for another body. Scully sees herself in the photos. So, they have photos of this body, and Scully sees herself basically on the slab. Mulder starts talking with Mo, and he's gone into profiler mode. So Mulder's doing his profiling, and whoever's doing this, he calls them an escalating fetishist. So it's someone who, has a deep-rooted hatred of women, and that it's manifesting itself in this taking trophies from dead bodies, but will most likely escalate to murder, which is why they need to catch this guy as fast as possible. Mo's clearly never worked on a case like this, because this is where he says, I've been up here in the Great White North too long. Scully's left the room at this point because she's a bit she was unnerved by the fact she saw herself in that photo. It seems like Mulder just wants to watch the game, because while Mo's doing his whole jabbering on act, talking about how this stuff just does not happen here, I've never seen anything like this kind of case before, this isn't New York, this isn't LA, whatever. And while he's doing all this, Mulder's just sat there watching the game and looking really disappointed that he's not there. But then just after that, Mulder comes out and he tells Scully that he's cancelling their flight out. But Scully looks a bit phased. She looks kind of distant, off in the land of Nod. So yeah, any thoughts?
Yeah, at this point I feel like, I know where this is going. They're really going to try and hammer home the melodrama on Scully here. And maybe if they had layered it up in previous episodes, if they'd built up towards it, it might have mattered more. But at this point I'm just like, sad Scully, not interested.
Do you think that if this episode had have aired straight after One Breath, you would feel differently about it?
No, I don't think so.
Wow.
I don't think so.
This right. 'Cause this is okay. This is sad times.
Sad times. I mean, would it be sadder if I told you I think I preferred Excelsior Day? Moving swiftly on.
I do hope that was a. Are you kidding me? You really did prefer Excelsior Day over this?
It's probably on par. I think I'd rather watch that one again.
That's insane. Insane.
Go on, let's get this one over with, Brian. Let's go.
No, screw you. Okay, so this is the fire of season 2 then.
It seems to be. It's definitely not the Beyond the Sea. That's for sure.
Okay. Oh, I definitely don't think it's Beyond the Sea. I mean, like I say, Beyond the Sea is probably my favourite episode of all time. But wow, all right, this is a kick in the balls. Okay, so we go from there to we have Scully doing a voiceover, and she's talking about how a complete profile of a death fetishist doesn't actually exist. Because they have so little to go on, because these types of cases are so few and far between. But based on what they do know about these cases, it seems that this guy, whoever it is, obviously we know it's Donny Faster, is the result of a deviation from normal social values. And again, it kind of dips its toe into what we had with Aubrey last episode, which is this whole nature versus nurture thing. You know, we have. Is it the family that Donny came from? Is there something in him that has caused a deviation from normal social values? And when, like later on, we see that he came from a family in which he had all sisters. He had about 4 sisters or something. So did that create something in him that led to a hatred of women?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't realise it was a death fetishist until they actually told me. I wasn't sure what it was or what he was doing with the bodies. And I didn't take it as a hatred of women either.
Right.
I took it more as an admiration and attractiveness to them.
Okay.
The way he was taking their hair and their nails, which is prized things that women do to make themselves look and feel better. Do their nails up, do their hair up, and he was taking that. I didn't get it as a hatred thing at the start.
Right. It's just that I see them as trophies.
Right.
But I think that is born out of a psychology dealing with a at its root is a hatred of women, which I think comes from the relationship that he probably had with his mother and his sisters. I mean, we do learn later on in this that his mum left the family home to his sisters.
I mean, he could have
in the will. So
I mean, you're surmising about the family life, but he could quite easily have been like around all these women who were always doing their nails, always doing their hair, and just became fascinated with that.
Yeah. But I think that is talked about as well, because I mean we'll get to it when we get to the end. So we go from there to a night class. Donny's taking a night class, and he's rather creepily looking at the...
No.
Yeah.
No, Donny's going for a hooker, Brian.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Screw that. I was jumping ahead in my notes there. Okay. So from there, we have Donny hitting the streets looking for a prostitute. So he picks up this hooker, takes her back to his place, and decides he's going to run a bath for her. And he asks, "Is your hair treated? Do you need a shampoo for chemically treated hair?" And this guy is a freak. He goes off to answer the phone because the phone rings while this woman gets ready to go in the bath. It turns out he got the job at Fetishist.
Isn't that lucky?
Yeah, and just as he discovers he got that job, the hooker comes in complaining about the temperature of the water, and the bedroom. She notices that the bedroom is just filled with wreaths, and it just looks a bit creepy. So she freaks out. He puts the phone down, and then he goes after her. Basically, we don't see what he does, but we do cut to a crime scene in which her body has been found with fingers missing. What do you think of this scene?
Yeah, no, I think it's quite effective. It's creepy again. I think the guy is naturally just creepy in the role. You get the phone call and the hooker, and the chase down after that, which is quite fun. And then you get the murder scene where they bring out one of the other night walkers to come and see if that's the body, and she just goes into hysterics straight away.
Yeah,
and gets carted away. Yeah, it's all right.
Okay.
I find quite a lot of this episode a slog to get through, to be fair.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man!
And
I can't believe I'm hearing this. I really
and the more
can't.
it went on, the more I just wished it was going to finish.
My goodness! If you'd have asked me to place bets, I would have lost big time. I honestly thought you'd like this episode. I know you're into like the your serial killer movies and all that. Boggled. My mind is boggled. I gotta say. That. Wow. Okay. This is annoying. This is dampening my enthusiasm for this episode. I wanted to come on here. I wanted us to both come on and have a loving appreciation of this episode, and it's just not there, which is hurtful. Cuts me deep.
If I can get one positive from this episode, is that every time you watch it, you realise how much I hate it, and it just detracts from your enjoyment, Brian.
Screw you. Okay, so we're at that crime scene, and Scully she has to go off and take a minute. It's just the body's just really affected it. We go from there. We see Donny delivering groceries for someone's house, and Donny asks to use the washroom, and when he's in there, he picks some hair out of the bin.
It's a big bit here.
yeah, really big bit of hair. And the woman's waiting outside the bathroom door to tell Donny that if they're ever not at home, they always leave the door unlocked. Yeah. So just let yourself in.
Yeah. This guy's a stranger in their house. It's the first time he's turned up in this job, and she's telling him that kind of information. I'm surprised she never put a bow around her daughter and just said, "Here, take her now."
The thing is, there are towns. Again, going back to like I said in the last episode with Aubrey. This is set 20-odd years ago, 25 years ago, and people did used to leave their doors unlocked, and when.
Yeah, but she made a point of saying just the back door, so they're obviously locking the front.
Yeah.
Seems strange to lock one door.
I assume I would assume she gives that information out to people she feels who need it. You know, she clearly has a relationship with this company. She knew the last delivery guy by his first name, had a relationship there. So it's like I guess in her mind she's expecting to build up that same relationship with a new delivery guy. It doesn't really bother me. The thing that strikes me, because really. And this, if I had a criticism of the episode, it would be this: it's that this scene actually doesn't go anywhere else after this. So if you want to criticise this episode by saying this scene is redundant, I could buy that. I could buy that criticism. But for me, what it does do is it sets up one of the themes of this episode, which is that the worst of killers could be your next door neighbour, could be stood right next to you and you wouldn't even know it. He could be the devil in a button-down shirt, as Mulder calls him at the end.
Yeah, but I mean, you can see it's the guy next door, the guy you never know, the guy who delivers whatever. But this guy's just creepy as all hell. This guy's got serial killer just dripping out of him. He really does.
What do you think of Nick Chinland then, who plays Donny Foster?
I think he's just creepy in general.
Right.
Yeah.
I like him in this role. I mean, I've seen him in other things, but I do think this is the best thing he's ever done.
He doesn't really emote much or do much. He's all just kind of like poker faced and just kind of staring off into the distance, and being kind of blank almost.
Right.
Feels very blank.
Okay.
Very just blank.
All right. Okay, so we go from there to the county morgue where Scully is doing an autopsy. And this is where we start to get into some of what's going on with Scully, I think, because she talks about how everybody has a story to tell. And she's as we have this voiceover, she's talking about essentially what her job is, what she has to do in these cases. And it is very clinical, it's very detached. And that's the key word there. It's that normally someone like Scully does this job because they are able to remain detached. And for some reason, that detachment in Scully is no longer there. She's finding it hard now to remain detached, which is why things are freaking her out, which is why things are getting to her. That shield that she's always been able to put up, because she is an FBI agent who's there to do a job, who's there to catch a killer, so that she has this shield of, that's my purpose, we're going to find this guy. She's finding it hard to keep that shield up now. That detachment has gone.
See, you asked me out of the two, Mulder and Scully, who is the most emotional of the two? Who's the ones that sort of latch on to feelings more than anything? I would say is definitely Mulder. Scully seems more pragmatic. She's scientific. She has the ability to weigh up information and make a smart decision about it. To see her affected this way doesn't make sense in the character that we've had so far. It seems far-fetched. It seems out of place for her, and there's been no hinting at it. It just happens all of a sudden that now she just can't cope with these bodies all of a sudden.
See, I feel it makes perfect sense, and you act like we've never seen Scully emotional. You know, again, you go back to Beyond the Sea when she lost her father, and all the emotions tied up into that episode. We see her breaking down in that episode and crying.
But even in that episode, she has the cognitive ability to go, like, you know what, I don't need to go back and hear what my father's supposed to say to me. I know what he was going to say. You know, she can make up decisions for herself. She doesn't go
but that's the journey.
To hear somebody say it to her. She can sit back, weigh up the odds and go, like, this is what I'm going to do.
But she doesn't get there straight away. That's the journey of her character in that episode. It's not until right at the end that she makes that decision. Throughout the entire episode, she's in that quandary. She's on the tipping point where she does want to go back and hear what her father says. It's only through the exploits of that case that she makes that decision not to.
But I can't see anything in this current case that would push her over the edge, that would make her feel as if she can't look at the bodies. I can't see anything in here that would sit in the mood.
She's seeing herself in it. That's the thing. It's like, I mean, the episode gets into it really when she goes to see the psychiatrist, because...
But there's been lots of other like female victims she's seen since being abducted, and she's never put herself onto them.
But that's not to say that this isn't a slow process, you know, because like this stuff happens. People repress things, people keep things down, and that's the way psychology works, you know. I had the very same thing happen to me years ago. I did work experience in the police force. I went in scenes of crime. The scenes of crime officers there dumped these crime scene photos in front of me of all the dead bodies in cases in the town where I lived, and that really affected me, and I didn't realise how much it affected me until a good few months after the fact. And actually, I did break down in front of my family as a result of that, because I had a particular image embedded in my mind. And like I say, I built up walls. I didn't deal with it. I said, because at the time I wanted to become a police officer, and you know, I it's like that's just something I'm going to have to deal with. That's just something I'm going to have to learn to face, learn to get over if I want to go down that route. And it was months later, all the processing and that kind of thing, that it got to me. And that's the way psychology often works. When you have something happened to you, in the case of Scully, she was abducted, she was taken, her life was almost taken from her. She was at death's door as a result of a man having power over her, taking her, subjecting her to the things that he subjected her to. That has to lie dormant. If she doesn't wake up after one breath and deal with that straight away directly, then something's got to give, you know, because we never see her deal with it, and that's what this episode is about. It's her dealing with that, and I think it's taken some time, but now it's manifesting itself, and I think we get that from when she goes to see the psychiatrist. It's that actually these things she's pushed to the bottom, because like when we did Firewalker, you know, she just wanted to get straight back into work. She didn't take time off. She didn't want to, and Mulder called her out on that. He said, "Look, Scully, I'm not quite sure you should be coming back yet." And she just brushed him off and said, "No, I'm ready. I'm coming back to work." So we've had that instance where, you know, we see her putting up this wall, putting up this shield, saying, "No, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm just going to focus on work." And now we've gotten to the point where actually she's finding it hard to focus on work. She's finding it hard to have that detachment that she once had, because she's been directly affected by something of that nature. By. Yeah,
but what you're saying, I mean, this psychological trauma that she's had, that she's dealing with, is pretty much effectively going to be brought up and cured within the space of a couple of days over the stage of this case. Surely that's not realistic when these psychological things happen. If you say it takes months to evolve, surely it's not just fixed like that.
Well, when I had my breakdown in front of my family, that was a catharsis. That helped me move forward. You know, now I still have those images in my head, but they don't affect me in that way, and they didn't. Really
you're taking personal stuff into this episode. For me, I don't buy it as the character that I've grown really attached to. I don't feel it's like the typical Scully. I don't see the motivations behind it. I don't buy it. The scene with the psychologist is one of the ones that really annoyed me in this episode. And there's something else that happens later on that really annoyed me as well. But all in all the way through this, the whole Scully aspect of it, couldn't stand. Could not stand it at all.
Wow. Okay. Hey. So Scully was doing the autopsy. She talks about the body having a story to tell. The voiceover is really clinical and detached. And she talks about how the murder is very angry and dehumanising. And then we cut to a police lineup. So one of the prostitutes who knew the hooker who was killed is doing this police lineup to see if she can spot the guy. She can't. She goes off, And Mulder starts telling Mo about his thoughts on the killer, and that's when he talks about how he says that this guy most likely has a deep-rooted hatred of women that's been developing for years. So that's when we go to the classroom. Donny's having a night class, and he's basically he's watching this woman at the front.
Play with her hair.
Once they leave, he goes out, and he doesn't really attack her. She doesn't give him the chance to, but he lays over her. He blocks her way, makes her feel really uncomfortable, behaves in a really unacceptable way, basically. Just scares the crap out of her, given his body language, the way he's talking. So she does what any rightful thinking woman would do and kicks him in the balls and runs off. We go from there to Scully having a nightmare about she's in the morgue, and she lifts a cover off a body, and she sees herself. And then just after that, Mulder calls to say that they've arrested someone, and we, the audience, think, oh, Donny Faster, obviously, because we've just seen him get taken down. But it's not Donny, it's someone else. It's a bit of a red herring. So they go to the jail to talk to this guy, to see him, and it's like I say, it's some other guy. It's not their man. Mulder recognises that straight away. But Donny, who's in the cell just across from them, he takes a shine to Scully. Sees Scully, and I guess has his Toombs moment. Almost, imprints on her, basically. Bit like Toombs did in his episodes. Scully and Mulder leave the jail, and Scully tells Mulder that it might be best if she took the body that they have back to DC to work on it. And Mulder shows some concern, but Scully just brushes it off. She's like, I'm fine, it's okay. I just think I'd be better working this case from a different angle. Which again calls back to the scene in Firewalker where she brushed him off. She doesn't want to deal with his concern because it brings out her vulnerability. It forces her to confront, what she's been through. And I think now she's finding it harder to keep that detached. So Mulder's seeing it. He's starting to see it come out. So we go back into the cells, and Donny starts talking to this guy, the one that they arrested, and basically asks who this agent was. Finds out, her name's Scully.
I like this scene because the other guy who had his ass kicked by the hooker, whatever his name is, he actually says, and it's the throwaway line, he's just like, Scully, like the sports commentator. He's tying it as to why he's latched onto that name and not Mulder's. It's one of those nice little details that you don't really think about, but when they say it, you're like, that's good. It's an unnecessary detail, but having it in there kind of just helps it feel more believable. Okay. Then Donny is let go, so the woman drops the charges, which I could buy because, let's face it, he technically doesn't do anything.
He technically doesn't do it. Any lawyer that she's spoken to would say, look, you've got nothing. Any police officer that she's spoken would say you've got nothing. His lawyer would say, look, if you want to proceed with this, we'll file a suit against you saying you're the one who attacked him. He's the one who came off with bruises and cuts. So she's dropped the case. We go from there to Scully has a quick chat with a lab specialist. So she's back in DC. She has a bit of a chat with a lab specialist before going to see the psychiatrist for your favourite scene of the episode. So she keeps talking about herself. She keeps talking about herself in the second person. probably as a way to detach herself from it, from everything that's going on. She says that she trusts Mulder with her life, but she doesn't want him to feel that he has to protect her. The psychiatrist reminds her of things she's been through lately. You know, her father died only a year ago, and obviously the big thing is that she was abducted just recently. It seems that Scully has lost her faith in the principle of what her role is, i.e. to confront the monsters and bring them in. She can no longer do that because she can no longer remain detached from it. So really, whether you like this episode hinges entirely on whether you buy the psychology of what is going on with Scully here. Clearly, you do not. I do. I think that comes from me having gone through something similar, as I've just spoken about.
I mean, I've actually got my notes. I'm not buying it. It's just in there. It's my biggest bugbear about this episode, as well as the bland villain who just is blank. But yeah, it's just, it feels as if they're really trying to hammer home, they're really trying to force this point into you here. You know, like, sit up and pay attention. This is super important. And honestly, this is a character that I'm really grown to love. And I don't care.
Oh, man. See, I really like Gillian Anderson's performance in this scene. I think she does a brilliant job in this scene, and I do find it emotional. I do. What can I say? I feel like she's dealing with stuff that, quite frankly, we should be dealing with. You know, like she went through a traumatic experience, and I think she's buried those feelings under, and now they're coming out, and it's this case that's triggered that. I have no problem buying it. I have no problem believing that she would be this way. And again, that comes from having dealt with, you know, not necessarily similar experiences, but experiences that allow me to relate to the psychology of it. So, yeah, what can I say? So Scully leaves the psychiatrist. She goes back to the expert, who has some good news, which is that Donny left a thumbprint on the finger that he didn't cut off from the hooker's body. And he also tells Scully that some FBI agent called, and he told him that Scully had a flight back to Minneapolis tonight. So, yeah,
two bits of information here. One, which is he's told him Scully's got a flight back, which is really in your face and just foreshadowing what's going to happen, because you kind of know what's going to happen from there. And the second, the first bit of information that I really liked is that they found a print on the body, because initially you're thinking, well, Donny's been arrested for just a misdirect, but this is what we know is he's probably been fingerprinted, and that's how we know exactly where he is in his current location.
Yeah.
So it's two bits of information here. One's really subtle and just really good, and the other one's just kind of in your face and kind of foreshadowing exactly what's going to happen next.
Yeah, exactly. Although I would have liked to seen at some point in which one of them says, "We had this guy, damn it," and we let him go. No, just joking. I could do without that. But yeah, it is a nice subtle detail, I think. But Scully calls Mulder to tell him the news and that she's coming back, even though Mulder says it's okay if she doesn't want to. You know, he's again showing that concern. But again, I do think this shows the strength of character in Scully. The fact that she is determined to stay on this case, determined to carry on seeing it through to its end, even though she is dealing with this stuff. Is she more emotional than she usually is? Yes, for good reason, I think. But she still has that strength. She still wants to get stuck in and carry on working it. So, yeah, apples and oranges, whatever. So the police raid Donny's house, find fingers in the fridge and hair in the pillows. Yeah. Just everyday common old garden variety.
I thought it was quite funny, the hair in the pillow was quite funny. Not as funny as the finger in the sprouts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
Nice job, Donny. Scully gets out of the airport, gets her hire car. Donny's been waiting for her, sees her, obviously follows her and rams her off the road. They filmed this scene kind of on the cheap because we never see the car from outside being rammed, but we see the headlights in the back. But it's still quite effective. I think it's a good use of budget there, I think.
Yeah.
But Mo and Mulder are checking flight manifests because Scully hasn't arrived. She should have come in 3 hours before. They see that her flight did make it, so she should be there. Just as they get to that, an officer comes in and tells them that Scully's car has been found. So we go to the car, and Mulder is checking it, tells Mo to run a check on the white paint that is on it, because that obviously belongs to the car that rammed it off the road.
This is one thing that really kind of bugbears as well, the fact that she's been taken. It just feels very repetitive, because not only like a few episodes ago she was taken for a long period of time, but it's happening again. It's very deja vu like, and because I don't buy what she's going through psychological wise, it just feels as if it's there to annoy more than anything.
See, I feel it's there to feed in to her psychology, because her worst nightmare at this point is being abducted again. You know, that's the thing that is causing all this underlying reaction from her is the fact that she was abducted, the fact that she had her power taken away from her. And for me, it's the fact that, she's abducted again plays into that. The question is, what's she going to do? Is she going to... Well, she does what she does. She fights back. And for me, that is the release of tension that she needs. I just... That's, for me personally, it feeds in thematically to what is going on, because it addresses the very thing that is that she's dealing with psychologically. To me it seems right. She get abducted. There you go. We're just completely under it. We're on completely different pages, but it does draw attention to how people can read things differently. There's the whole subjective nature of film and how you bring your own experience to it, your own thoughts, your own feelings. It's an interesting case study, I'll say that much. So we cut to a creepy house, and Donny's walking around in the dark and starts running a bath again. And he opens up a cupboard where Scully's been tied up. And just as he closes the cupboard again, Scully sees him and sees this kind of demonic figure that we saw at the beginning. No thoughts on that?
I do like that image of the demon. I do have a fair few questions about that, because it seems it's not like the one person that keeps seeing that. It keeps popping up all over the place, so it's kind of putting that thought in your head that he is a demonic figure. He's a demon and not a real human being.
Yeah.
Which, if it was maybe just one person that saw it, I could maybe just pass it by as a vision, but when a couple of people see it, you start to wonder.
Okay. Something that will be directly addressed in the sequel. So Mo gets a name of the paint that they found on the car, but apparently there's about 60,000 cars that kind of have that particular paint, so it doesn't really help them much. But Mulder says that they've got to think like Donny. Where would he go? And Mo just comes out with this off-the-cuff remark that's kind of meant as... It's quite a funny remark where he's just like, anywhere but his mother's, right? And Mulder's like, well, why would you say that? And he's like, well, given that he's so pissed off at her and pissed off at his, at women in general. And that kind of makes Mulder start to think, actually, you know what? did the mother have a house? Would he stay there? Bit of a Norman Bates kind of mentality, I guess, going into it. They go to, they do some checks on his mother's address, and she lives miles away. She did live miles away. She's died. So clearly Donny can't be at that house because there's no way he'd be able to have got there and done all the things that he's done, basically, within the time scale that he's done them. So Mulder gets Mo to do a further check, a bit more digging to see if they had any other properties. Maybe that house was a summer house or whatever. And it turns out, there was another house that was left in the will to Donny's sisters. Donny comes, we go back to Donny, and he comes in to get Scully, and shapeshifts. So it looks like he's going to untie Scully's hands, but Scully sees him kind of shapeshifting, and the question is this all in her head? Is he actually doing this? What's going on? And I like that ambiguity there. I like this notion that, is it that in circumstances of heightened adrenaline, whatever, these kind of circumstances, does it cause people to see things? I think a film I saw recently, we talked about it not so long ago, called Gerald's Game, and there's this whole thing in there about she sees this creepy ass dude in this house, and there's this whole thing that, is it all in the head? Is it real? Does the situation that she's in create this, and it's all about fears. It's all about in the dark, when you're alone in the dark, does it cause you to see things that aren't really there? And I guess there is that here. Is he really a demonic force, or is he just so freaky that it causes people to think such thoughts? Okay, so he takes her to the bathroom, and then he asks, "Is your hair normal or dry? Do you need a shampoo for chemically treated hair?" At this point, Scully fights back. She makes the choice not to be a victim. She pushes him into the bathtub, does a runner. They have a bit of a tuffle. She goes off. She hides in a cupboard. Finds this little canister of spray, sprays his eyes with it when he opens the cupboard. The two of them tussle on the top of the stairs, fall down. Scully goes for the gun. She whacks it out of his hand, and then that's when Mulder and Mo and all the other agents bust in and arrest the guy. Scully stands up, tries to be strong, but at that moment she caves and she breaks down. Mulder embraces her, and what can I say? This time around, watching it, I welled up during this moment. I really liked this moment. I was quite emotionally struck by it. Again, I think it's a release for Scully. I think she faced down her abductor. She survived, and I just think this episode has brought out things that she should deal with as a result of what she went through.
At this point, I welled up a little bit as well, and I was emotionally struck because I was so close to the end of this episode, and I knew we were almost there, and I could see a release coming from this episode.
Right. Okay. Well, we have a voiceover from Mulder over some family photos of Donny, where we see him with his sisters and whatnot, and Mulder just talks about, I guess, the mundane nature of Donny's life on the surface. We don't really know what went down with him and his family. He came from a family that was predominantly women. Obviously, that had to affect who he became on some level. We're left with this thought that actually the scariest monsters are the human ones. We in these X-Files, we deal with all kinds of monsters all the time. People like Toombs, people like the Fluke Man. When actually the scariest ones are people like this guy who on the surface are just normal people who live next door, but actually are something a lot more sinister underneath. Yeah.
Okay, who's wrapping up first then, Brian?
Well, I love this episode. I do. I've seen it many times. I love Gillian Anderson's performance in it. I think she gives a tremendous performance in this episode. It does get me emotionally. I like the way it deals with what's going on with her, psychologically speaking. I do have the same gripes as you when she first struggles with the body. I'm like, what's going on? That's not right. But as the episode unfolds and we realise why she's going that way, I buy it. I like it. I love the episode. I think Nick Chinlund makes for a suitably creepy villain. 5 out of 5 from me.
Right. Okay. I like some of the direction. I like the demonic imagery. I think that's quite fun. And I'm kind of torn between the bad guy because I find him extremely bland, but kind of creepy at the same time. 1.5 out of 5.
Wow, that is incredible.
I've got to say, I think it's possibly the least enjoyable episode that I've seen this season, and one that I literally could not wait for it to end. I just didn't connect with it in any way, shape or form.
Wow. Good grief.
Oh well, it's been a while since we had such a disagreement on an episode, Brian.
That is, and for it to be this one as well, one that I would say is actually one of my favorite, well, possibly my favorite of season 2. Yeah, just wow.
And I came in onto it on a high after seeing Aubrey as well. So
yeah. I'd been looking forward to us getting to this episode because, well, like I say, I like it so much.
Sorry. Let's change the subject. So next up is episode 14. Is it Die Hand die Verlitz?
Yeah, so it's German. I can't quite remember what it means. The hand that it's the hand that something or other. I can't remember what it means. It will tell us at some point in the episode. But yeah. Now this one, man, I'm shocked now because after Irresistible, if I was a gambling man, I really think you're gonna like it.
Right.
I really think you're gonna like it. It's about some devil worshippers getting more than they bargained for in the form. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Devil worshippers. We'll just go with that.
Cool.
I'll say this. It's one of the creepiest.
Interesting.
There's a woman in the episode who just makes my skin crawl, quite frankly.
So yeah, join us next week where we may be a little bit more energised and less deflated. Who knows? We'll see. See you there for episode 14.